Title: The Day Willow Creek Lane Changed Forever. I still remember the afternoon everything spun out of control, an ordinary day that turned unthinkable. My sister Emma had stopped by for a casual visit, just to chat and sip tea. But within moments, she was in handcuffs, arrested by the self-proclaimed neighborhood security officers, a rogue HOA enforcement squad known locally as the HOA Cops. They wore smug grins, brandishing their petty authority like a trophy. What they didn't know was that Emma wasn't just any neighbor. Behind her composed exterior was a secret that would unleash a chain of events no one, especially the HOA, could have predicted. When the Secret Service arrived, everything changed. I'd always believed a neighborhood should be a haven, waving to neighbors on evening strolls, borrowing sugar, watching kids play across the street. But that comforting vision shattered when I moved to Willow Creek Lane. Freshly divorced and seeking a quiet place to rebuild, I bought a modest bungalow 2 blocks from Emma. She'd urged me to move here, calling the community tight-knit and safe. On paper, it was. In reality, the HOA ruled with an iron grip, masking their power trips behind rules that felt more like a pact with a tyrant than community guidelines. They had rules for everything: the exact shade of beige for fences, the permissible volume of a dog's bark, how long trash cans could linger curbside. It was absurd, but I tried to comply, convincing myself to avoid trouble. Emma was my anchor in those early days. 3 years older, she'd seen more than most. A Peace Corps veteran, she'd honed resilience, diplomacy, and a knack for spotting oppression disguised as order. She warned me to stay vigilant. It didn't take long for the HOA to target me with warning letters. My lawn was half an inch too tall. My ivy crept into neighbor airspace. It wasn't about order. It was bullying. Emma urged me to document everything. Then came the day. It started with a knock. Emma had dropped by, and we were deep in a conversation about Sri Lankan about a neighbor, Lydia, who'd been harassed by the HOA cops for letting her teen son chase his dropped phone near the community dumpster. Emma was livid. "We need to expose who's really pulling the strings," she said. Before we could finish, 2 HOA cops stormed onto my porch. One was short and burly, the other tall and lanky, both radiating arrogance that made your skin crawl. "You there?" The shorter one snapped at Emma. "Are you the homeowner?" "No," she replied. "I'm her sister." "Then you're trespassing," he barked. Emma blinked, stunned. Trespassing on my sister's porch? They cited obscure HOA codes, claiming non-residents needed written permission to be on the property. When she laughed in disbelief, they threatened to arrest her. I stepped in, demanding their legal basis. That's when things escalated. Without warning, the shorter one pulled out handcuffs. "You're under HOA detention," he declared. Emma didn't resist. She stood tall, her calm gaze unnerving them as they cuffed her and dragged her down the steps. I was too shocked to stop them. They took her to the community center, their makeshift HQ, and locked her in a room. When I ran there minutes later, they blocked me. "She's interfering with HOA business," they claimed. I called the police, but they dismissed it as a civil matter and refused to intervene. My sister was being illegally detained, and no one would help. That's when I noticed him, a man in a suit, older, too quiet, too watchful. He stood near the door, blending in almost perfectly. Our eyes met briefly, and I felt a chill recognition, or maybe threat. The HOA cops ordered me to leave or face detention. Furious, helpless, I left, trembling. That night, I barely slept. I posted in a private neighborhood group chat. A few neighbors expressed sympathy but were too scared to act. Fear had poisoned this place, fear of retaliation. The next morning, everything shifted. A loud pounding at my door jolted me awake. I opened it to 3 men in dark suits. "Secret Service," one said, flashing a badge. "We're looking for a woman named Emma." I froze. "That's my sister, but the HOA has her." He raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me." 10 minutes later, black SUVs rolled up outside the HOA community center. Neighbors gawked from driveways as agents stormed in. The HOA cops, so smug yesterday, were now pale, stammering. "We have reason to believe you're detaining a federal witness," said the lead agent, Agent Brooks. "Step aside." The short enforcer tried to protest, demanding ID, muttering about authority, but it was futile. They let us inside. Emma was cuffed to a chair. The suited man from yesterday stood in the corner. When Agent Brooks saw him, the room ignited. "I've been looking for you, Grayson," he said. Grayson, the mysterious man, wasn't an HOA consultant. He was a fugitive wanted for financial crimes and suspected ties to extremist groups. Emma had identified him months ago, working covertly with the Secret Service to build a case. The HOA cops had unknowingly detained a federal informant. The fallout was swift. Local police finally arrived, now under federal orders. The HOA board resigned en masse. Several enforcers were arrested for unlawful detention, and the mastermind, Miles Thornton, the HOA president, had vanished. Emma and I were taken back to my house, where Agent Brooks explained. Emma had suspected the HOA was more than a petty tyranny. She'd uncovered financial discrepancies and, at a fundraiser, recognized Grayson. She'd tipped off the feds. The HOA was laundering money through fines, penalties, and fake violations, a front for a larger scheme. Over the next few weeks, Emma and I sifted through evidence, helping the feds track Miles. A tip led us to a rundown motel 2 towns over. We drove there to confirm, telling ourselves we'd stay cautious, but when we spotted Miles and he bolted, instinct took over. We chased him, cornered him, and just as he lunged at Emma to grab her phone, black SUVs screeched into the lot. Agent Brooks stepped out. "Miles Thornton," he called. "Hands where we can see them." Miles froze, then surrendered. It was over. The days that followed brought headlines, courtrooms, and a neighborhood reckoning. Miles was charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud, intimidation, obstruction of justice, and illegal detention. Several HOA associates were indicted. Federal prosecutors called it one of the worst HOA power abuses in state history. Emma testified before a congressional panel on private community misconduct. Her words, powerful, raw, unflinching, sparked national outrage. Victims from other states reached out. Advocacy groups offered her roles, but she declined most. "This isn't about politics," she said. "It's about stopping this from happening again." In Willow Creek Lane, change took hold. A new HOA formed, democratic, transparent, community-driven. Enforcement was handed to city authorities. Residents, once silenced by fear, now gathered openly, spoke freely, and walked proudly. Emma and I organized a community memorial, not for lives lost, but for trust restored. We planted a tree in the main park with a plaque, "Where fear once stood, hope now grows." Under a sunlit sky, neighbors we'd thought apathetic stepped forward with food, hugs, and quiet apologies. It didn't erase the pain, but it showed a fractured community could heal. A month later, we got word. Miles had pleaded guilty, accepting a 22-year sentence in a plea deal. The courtroom was packed. Emma and I sat in the front row. When the judge's gavel fell, pronouncing the sentence, a collective sigh filled the room, a chapter closed. Emma squeezed my hand. "We did it." I nodded, choking back tears. "We really did." And that was the end. We didn't just survive Willow Creek Lane, we reclaimed it, forging a community rooted in hope, never again to bow to fear.